Mr. Lapid, thank you for joining me. Let's start with Gaza, because we're at a kind of watershed moment, aren't we? That we have the ceasefire in place and we can start to take account. Let's show you some pictures our team took inside Gaza last week. And I just want to get your response to that, because, you know, we've seen the drone pictures, but it is profoundly shocking, isn't it, to look at that?
Yes, of course.
What
devastating.
What goes through your head
and
your heart when you see those
devastating.
pictures?
Without getting into the important questions of who is to be blamed for this, it is part of the problem we had with the Arkan government is the fact that they were reluctant to say, we are sorry to see people's lives shattered this way, especially when children are dying. This happened because of Hamas going into Israel on October 7th. This is happening because of Hamas using his own people as human shield. And you have to understand that underneath this horrible sights is Hamas city, in which everybody is fine. They send their own people up there to get killed, and they stay down using them as human shield. But still, this is, of course...
But when we look at these pictures, I mean, those are homes, aren't they? Those are where people
This is
used
what
to
war
live,
looks like. This is what war looks like.
Do you think the IDF went too far, though?
No, I think the IDF was fighting for our lives. I think people need to remember, this started on October 7th when we were massacred. The worst massacre against Jews since the World War II, since the Holocaust. And we didn't want this war. We were engaged in this war because we were protecting ourselves and because we had to get rid of Hamas, otherwise it will happen to us again. This is what war looks like. And when you look at the war, you have to ask yourself who started this war, why they started this war, was it necessary? And the answer, of course, is no. Sure,
but I mean, the death toll, 20,000 children over 23 months, as one UN spokesman put it to me the other day. That's a classroom a day of children dying. You said the IDF behaved honourably. Do you still stand by that, given that kind of death toll?
I think people need to understand, and this they know, that war is horrible everywhere. It was horrible when the British were in Mosul. It was horrible. I mean, war is horrible. And people need to understand this is a war that the terms of engagement were set by Hamas. And what we see here is the result of the brutality of Hamas, not only towards Israelis, but also towards their own people. So this is what you see. And the fact that people were trying not to understand this, to me, was not as shocking, but almost as shocking as the pictures themselves.
What do you think the damage to Israel's image has been? Because you're a media man before you were a politician. Mm-hmm. How much of a dent has Israel's standing taken in the world after this war, do you think?
Quite a bit. And of course, the current government didn't help. I mean, when ministers are saying things like we have to nuke Gaza, so we know them and we know they account for nothing, but people abroad does not. And a lot of demons were awakened. I mean, I was watching, you know, from back home, all those marches in Trafalgar Square and Whitehall and elsewhere, and I was thinking, how come they never marched when the children were dying in Sudan? Sudan is a much greater tragedy than Gaza. 3.6 million children in the risk of starvation, and nobody's marching.
Sure,
when the kids were dying, there were almost 10 times people who died in Ethiopia in the same time. And nobody said anything. Why is it? Because the Jews were not involved.
It may not be fair, but the perception out there, the consensus amongst many people, particularly the young, is that Israel is engaged in a genocide. Can Israel, whether that's right or wrong, can Israel recover from that, do you think?
Well, isn't it important if it is right or wrong? I think it's important. It is wrong. This was not a genocide. This was a horrible war in a very dense populated area. And by the way, it was examined, it was not genocide. And the fact that people are getting their educations through TikTok doesn't make them right. It just makes them ignorant.
Well, the ICJ is still deciding whether it's going to be a genocide or not.
Well, OK. What we had here is unprovoked attack on Israel, and then Israel fighting a horrible terror organization.
I mean, but the truth is the jury's still out on whether it was a genocide. It's certainly in the ICJ. But
in the last 3 minutes, you have said the word genocide 6 times. Even though you're doing the right thing, meaning asking the journalistic questions, the word is now in between us on this desk, and this is what people are gathering from it. This is just wrong. We were trying to protect our lives. I'm no representative of the government. I'm the leader of the opposition. I disagreed with a lot of things they've done in the last 2 years, but this is not genocide.
And the other International Criminal Court, the ICC, has obviously indicted your Prime Minister and your Defence Minister. Should they now be handed over? If you were Prime Minister, would they be handed over to the ICC?
No, because I want to see first ICC being that targeted on Hamas and on Hezbollah and on Iran, on Khamenei in Iran and all the National Guard. This is the double standard here is amazing to me. And again, I'm no defender of Prime Minister Netanyahu. I'm his primary political, I don't want to say enemy, but rival. Still, the hypocrisy is unbelievable to me.
Well, I mean, moving on to Netanyahu. They say you are the man who could end the Netanyahu era. If you succeed in that, elections at some point next year, possibly as early as, March, April,
yes,
as late as, November. If you were able to do that, what's the new era going to look like?
Well, I think this is the two Israels we have to decide between. I mean, the Israel we are talking about is liberal, is liberal British style, not American. Americans using the term in a different way. Liberal, democratic, the word of the Weizmann Institute and tolerance and people tend to forget, because of fear, that Israel, we used to say two things about ourselves. One is that Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East, and the other was that Israel is the strongest power in the Middle East. And we tend to forget sometimes that the second is the result of the first. We are strong because we are a democracy. We are strong because we are this magnificent supermarket of ideas. And we have to go back to this, to the startup nation, to the proper democracy that we have created out of the desert. So this is where we need to go back to.
And it has also very complicated politics, doesn't it? So for you to form a government next year, you're going to have to do a deal with somebody.
With more than somebody.
Well, a number of people, right?
Yeah, I'm holding, by the way, a world record. I think I should be in the Guinness Book of Records because I formed a government made out of 8 different parties the last time I formed the government. I want to form a government now of 4 or 5.
Okay, and one of the groups you could form a government with, possibly, are the Arab parties, the Israeli Arab parties. Now, you have ruled that out. You said in the wake of October the 7th you wouldn't have Arabs in your government. Do you still stand by that?
It was interesting. I said that what we have to do is to form a Zionistic government in order to start the repair of Israel. And then everybody said, whoa, hey, are you boycotting Mansour Abbas, who was my former colleague? And then they interviewed him. He's an Arab. And he said, I totally agree. I think the Israeli society now needs to start the repair and the healing process without us, and then we might be able to join in later on.
So you would have Arabs in your government?
I think not. I think it's too premature.
What? I mean, to British ears, that might sound racist. Why not have Arabs in your government? They're Israeli Arabs, they're Israeli citizens, they can play a role.
These are two very different things. This is 20% of the society of Israel, and they deserve rights, and they deserve being taken care of, and they deserve much better standard of dealing with the issues that troubles them as a group. But, when you form a government, not everybody's going in. You ask me who I want to form the government with. I want to form the government with 3 or 4 other parties that are now the main target of the next coalition.
And one man you could go into government with is Naftali Bennett, of course, who's on the right wing of Israeli politics. Now, you're forcing a vote, or not forcing a vote, you're pushing the vote in the Knesset next week on the 20-point Trump plan.
Yeah.
And part of that, envisages a credible pathway towards a Palestinian state, which you favour a 2-state solution. Naftali Bennett has said the idea of forming a Palestinian state in Israel has reached a dead end. Never in the history of the Jewish people has so much energy been invested in something so pointless. We should put the idea behind us. Does that make it impossible, really, for you to sit in the government with him? It's such a key issue, right?
No, it is a key issue. It's not the only issue. I think right now, you might think it's tragic, you might think it's not, but it's not right now on the table for the next 3, 4, 5 years. What is on the table for the next 3, 4, 5 years is rehabilitating the Israeli society. And this we've done together before, and we can do together in the future and for a better future of the country. We've been this weird duo for quite a long time now, and we are capable of working out a government. And this government... Now, the thing about the 20 points plan, we need to put this on Knesset's table in order for the world to see, and the Americans to see, and the American president to see, that the entire Knesset, opposition, coalition alike, are cheering for the effort, for the the fact that they have returned the hostages that we almost despair of. And I'm calling upon Prime Minister Netanyahu to bring the entire coalition into this vote, even as a token for our appreciation for what President Trump has done for us.
Because the expectation is it's going to get blocked, isn't it? Because it includes that reference to a Palestinian state.
Well, we have to remember, Prime Minister Netanyahu has announced that he's accepting the 22 plan. He just did it in a tweet instead of a decision of the Knesset. But basically, formally, the government has announced that it is accepting the 20 points plan. And now all I want is to bring it to Knesset just to have joint forces of coalition opposition supporting the plan and supporting the efforts of the president.
Just finally, do you think the Netanyahu era is coming to a close? Has he run out of road, do you think? And is he going to get blamed for October the 7th?
Yes, I think it's tragic to end your career this way. I think it's coming to an end. I think it's been in power for too long. You remember the famous Lord Acton saying about power. And I think it's about time. And I think, yes, from all his deeds, and he did some good for the country. We will work together in the past. The fact of the matter is he's going to be remembered most by October 7th, and the fact that the theory that you can enforce Hamas in order to be a counterweight to the Palestinian Authority has proved so tragically wrong, because, you know, when you're helping jihadic groups, it's going to end tragically. And the tragedy includes, apparently, his legacy.